He called her the pet. Not once. Not by accident. Every single time. And for 6 months she let him. That was his first mistake. Before we start, if you're new here, this is HFY. Humanity FY. Stories where humans are underestimated right up until the moment it stops being funny. Today's story is about Prince Sevrun of the Threen Dominion, third in line to a throne that ruled 42 star systems, and a human named Mara Ellison, who he bought at a species auction thinking she was livestock. He was wrong. He just didn't find out until it was too late. Let's get into it. The Threen Dominion doesn't recognize Earth. Never has. As far as their star charts are concerned, Sol 3 is an unclassified biosphere, meaning anything living on it has no legal personhood under Dominion law. So when a smuggler crew jumped a supply route through the outer belt and grabbed 6 humans off a mining colony, nobody on Threen Prime blinked. They went straight to auction. Livestock manifest. Genus: unknown. Intelligence rating: unverified. Prince Sevrun didn't even go himself. He sent his steward with instructions. Get me something exotic for the menagerie. Something that walks upright. It'll impress the delegates. Mara Ellison, 29 years old, former combat medic, 5 tours in 3 different war zones back on Earth before she ever left the solar system on a supply contract, was catalogued as Lot 14. Bipedal. Mammalian. Docile temperament. Assumed. She said nothing at the auction. She said nothing on the transport. She said nothing for 3 weeks after being placed in the east wing of the palace, in a room with a feeding schedule taped to the door. The staff thought she was broken. She was counting exits. Sevrun wasn't cruel. That's the part people get wrong about stories like this. He wasn't a monster. He was something worse in some ways. He was careless. He'd never had to think about whether something could hurt him because on Threen Prime nothing ever had. He'd visit her enclosure between council sessions. Talk at her, not to her. Tell her about trade disputes and border skirmishes like she was a houseplant that happened to have ears. You're lucky, you know, he told her once, tapping the transparent wall of her room like she was an animal at a zoo. Most of your kind are still on that dirt ball, dying of things we cured centuries ago. She looked at him. Just looked. He mistook the silence for stupidity. That was his second mistake. Because Mara wasn't quiet out of fear. She was quiet because she'd learned, a long time ago in places far worse than this palace, that the person who talks least is usually the one who survives longest. 6 months in, the Dominion capital was hit by something nobody saw coming. A coordinated strike from the Void Concord, a rival faction that had spent years infiltrating the palace staff. They didn't just want territory. They wanted the royal bloodline gone. The attack happened at night. Alarms, plasma fire in the east corridor, staff screaming, guards falling faster than they could reload. And Prince Sevrun, heir to 42 systems, trained his whole life in diplomacy and courtly combat forms that had never once been used outside a sparring ring. Found himself alone in a hallway with a jammed sidearm and 3 Void Concord operatives closing in. That's when the enclosure door blew outward. Mara had been palming a maintenance override key from a board guard for 2 months. She'd mapped every camera blind spot in the east wing without anyone noticing. She'd been waiting not for rescue. She'd stopped expecting that a long time ago. She'd been waiting because soldiers know that chaos is the only door that ever really opens. She didn't hesitate. She didn't announce herself. The first operative was down before he registered she was in the room. The second got her elbow across his throat. The third turned his weapon toward the prince. And Mara was already moving, already inside his guard, already finishing what 6 deployments had taught her to finish in under 4 seconds. Silence. Sevrun stood there, his sidearm still jammed, staring at a woman he'd spent 6 months calling the pet. Now standing over 3 dead soldiers with a stolen combat knife and his blood pressure in her hands. "You're welcome," she said, her first words to him in 6 months. The Dominion Council convened an emergency session 2 days later. Sevrun sat at the head of the table, and for the first time in his life he didn't speak first. "Explain to me," said Councillor Vess, an elder Threen with 3 centuries of political memory, "how an unclassified biosphere specimen neutralized 3 trained Void Concord operatives without support." Sevrun opened his mouth, closed it, He genuinely didn't have an answer because he genuinely never asked. Mara did. Where I'm from, we don't have planetary shields or trade routes or any of the things that make your species feel safe, she said, standing in a room full of people who'd spent 6 months not knowing her name. We have each other and we have practice. My planet's whole history is just this, over and over. You people cataloged that as docile temperament. Assumed. Nobody said anything for a long moment. I'd like to revise the classification, Vess said finally, quiet. I'd like to revise more than that, Sevrun said. He stood, walked around the table, and in front of the full council, Prince Sevrun Akai of the Threen Dominion did something no member of his bloodline had done in 400 years. He apologized to someone he'd once called property. I called you a pet, he said, for 6 months. To your face. You did, Mara said. I was wrong. You were. He held out a hand, the Threen gesture of formal address between equals, not master and subject. I'd like to correct that, if you'll let me. Mara looked at the hand for a long moment. Then at the 3 dead bodies still being cleared from the hallway footage on the wall screen behind him. Then back at him. Earth's still out there, she said. Unclassified, undefended. And now you know exactly what's on it. Sevrun's hand didn't move. Then let's fix that too. 6 months later, Sol 3 got its first official Dominion classification. Sapient. Sovereign. Do not engage without diplomatic clearance. Mara Ellison became the first human ambassador to a species that had once bought her at auction. She never let Sevrun forget it, and to his credit, he never asked her to. The old feeding schedule from her enclosure door still hangs in his private study. He kept it on purpose. Why? She asked him once. So I remember, he said, that the worst mistake I ever made wasn't underestimating you. It was thinking I had the right to. That's the story. The alien prince who thought humans were pets, and learned in about 4 seconds flat exactly how wrong he was. If you like this one, there's more like it on the channel, Humans Getting Underestimated, and Aliens Finding Out Why That's Always a Mistake. Drop a comment telling me what you'd have done in Mara's position. Like the video if you want more HFY. And I'll see you in the next one.